Let's move on now. Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister Emine Zafarova was in India this week, the first visit by the Ukrainian side since the start of the war. In the meantime, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has visited India twice, in April last year and in March this year for the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. Ukraine has openly expressed its displeasure in the past over India's position on the Ukraine war. So what has changed now? Why is Ukraine looking towards India? Here's what was the purpose of the visit, at least from what we know and what was said by the Deputy Foreign Minister. First of all, what she wanted was India to consider the G20 participation of Ukraine. They want their officials to participate in various meetings, and that's not all. The other reason for the visit was also to hand over a letter to Meenakshi Lekhi, which was actually addressed for the Prime Minister and from President Zelensky. The letter, the contents of which have not been revealed. However, we do know that a request has been made for President Zelensky to be able to address the G20 summit, and that's certainly going to be something that's tricky for India. Meanwhile, they also want a symbolic visit of the Prime Minister and the NSA, Ajit Doval. In fact, it was pretty much announced by the Deputy Foreign Minister, Emine Zafarova, that Ajit Doval will be traveling to Ukraine. And they are also looking at more humanitarian aid, including medicines and medical supplies from India. Now, interestingly, Emine Zafarova drew parallels between Ukraine's invasion by neighbor Russia to India's difficult neighborhood with Pakistan on the one side and China on the other. She said the annexation of Crimea was a lesson for India to recognize the dangers of not stopping impunity at the right time. She met senior Ministry of External Affairs officials, the Deputy NSA Vikram Misri, and also Meenakshi Lekhi, the Minister of State in the Ministry of External Affairs, to whom she handed over a letter from President Zelensky to Prime Minister Modi. "14 months since the start of the war, Ukraine sends its first emissary to India. Deputy Foreign Minister Emine Zafarova was in India for 2 days this week. She came to New Delhi with a clear agenda to ask for Ukraine's participation in the G20 summit under India's presidency.
We believe that discussion about economy and the future economy and economic situation in the world is not possible without frank discussion about the repercussions of the war of Russia against Ukraine. I believe that my president would be also happy to speak up on behalf of Ukrainian people and to also explain what is the impact of the war to the world economy as well as to the Ukrainian economy. In my country, in Ukraine.
The minister also handed over a letter from President Zelensky to Prime Minister Modi. The move by Ukraine puts India in a tricky situation, as Russia has already made its stand clear on the inclusion of Ukraine war in the G20 agenda.
Nobody was giving a damn about anything except finances and macroeconomic policies, which G20 was formed for. These days, when it is not something which the West is doing, believing this, that it's right, when Russia has, after many years of warnings, started to defend itself, there is nothing except Ukraine which is of interest for G20.
Russia and China had objected to the joint communique at the G20 finance ministers meeting in February and then the foreign ministers meeting in March to include 2 paragraphs related to Ukraine. The same ones, ironically, that were included in the Bali Declaration and to which none had any objection. As per Russia, much has changed between November last year and this year for them to accept the same communique language. While India's relations with Russia are well known now, Ukraine urged for starting a new chapter in the ties with Kiev too. The foreign minister also drew parallels between the Russian aggression against a neighbor to India's difficult neighborhood of Pakistan and China. She said the war in Ukraine had lessons for India too.
Now I think that Ukrainian people have no fear anymore, so we understand that this war is an existential war, and the war with neo-colonial ambition of our neighboring leader who questions the very existence of Ukraine. And I think that Indian people can really feel this because he also had this kind of pages in your history. The second part of my speech is justice is important because, as I said, Crimean lesson teaches us one thing, that whenever aggression is not brought to accountability, it has a repetition, it becomes bigger.
Ukraine has also sought more humanitarian aid from India. More importantly, medicines and medical supplies. As a welcome gesture on its part, it has also formally communicated that the Indian medical students who had to flee Ukraine due to the war can take the Unified State Qualification exam from India itself.